Hello and welcome to book club number 3. Um, I've got 3 art books to show you, but before I do, can I say please like and subscribe. This is my 3rd launch of this sort of thing, and despite the fact most of them are about chess, I have got 1 member, and I need more than 1 member, and as indeed who doesn't. Now the first book I'm going to show you is Jeanette Winterson, Art and Lies. Now, this is a book I got from the library. They were selling off some old books. And I have read stuff by her before, but not recently. And I've seen her on television, but not recently. Little bit of background. She was born in 1959, as was I. She grew up in Lancashire and now lives in London. Well, I never grew up. Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit won the 1985 Whitbread Award for the first novel. Adaptation of Oranges has won her awards around the world, including BAFTA for Best Drama. She has won a Passion, The Passion, this is a novel, Sexing the Cherry, and the E.M. Forster Award from the American Academy for Arts and Letters. Written on the Body, published in 1992, has been translated into 16 languages. That is not messing about. Anyway, let's look again at this amazing cover. Arts and Lies, which is the title of the book, is a question and a quest. 3 voices brought in a single place, in a single day. Handel, Picasso, and Sappho. Which one? Yes, well, I know bits and bobs about Picasso. George Frederick Handel had some of his stuff, and Sappho, I know not, my liege. Art Lies as musical power, emotions, thoughts, and moral forces are brought into collision and directed towards a single end that is linked to the unfamiliar beginning with satisfying inevitability. I think if I read that paragraph 100 times, I would still not understand it. As musical power, its events, emotions, thoughts, and moral forces are brought into collision and directed towards a single end that is linked to the unfamiliar beginning with satisfactory inevitability. Art and Lies is a rich book, bawdy and beautiful, shocking because of its beauty, an antidote against the numbness of modern life. Art and Lies is a dangerous book, banking with ideas forced out of the words themselves. Not words for things, but words that are living things with the power to move. A piece for 3 voices and a board. I've never heard the word board, as in bawdy, used as a noun in that way. This was written in 1994. So it's quite some years ago. The nature of a work of art is not a part, nor yet a copy of the real world, but a world in itself. Well, I can understand, and I do agree. Independent, complete, autonomous, and to possess it fully, you must enter that world, conform to its laws, and ignore for the time being the beliefs, aims, and particular conditions which belong to you in the other world of reality. And that's a quotation from 1901 poem by Professor Bradley. And here she is talking, possibly even meeting, but I don't know, handle. From a distance only the light is visible, a speeding, gleaming horizontal angel, trumpet out on a hard bend, the note bells. The note bells, the beauty of the stretching train that pulls the light. That's charming, isn't it? The note bells, the beauty of the stretching train that pulls the light in a long gold thread. It catches in the wheels, it flashes on the doors that open and close, in commuter rhythm, on the overcoats and briefcases, brooches and sighs. The light snag in rough cut stones that stay unpolished. The man is busy. He hasn't time to see the light that burns his clothes and illuminates his face, the light pouring down his shoulders with biblical zeal. His book is a plate of glass. That's pretty graphic and also purple prose, I suppose. And this is the first bit where we encounter it as reader Handel. And then she goes on to Picasso. Picasso, easel, brushes, bags, waiting for the train. On the dark station platform, lit by cups of light, a guard paces his invisible cage. 12 steps towards 12 steps back. Forward, 12 steps back. He didn't look up. He muttered into walkie-talkie, held so close to his upper lip that he could have been shaving. He should have been shaving. Picasso considered the guard, the pacing, the muttering, the unkept face, the ill-fitting clothes. In aspect and manner, he was no better than the average lunatic, and he drew a salary, and he was competent to answer questions about trains. Picasso decided to ask one, "What time shall I expect the arrival of the 12 at 9:15?" He looked at her with undistinguished contempt. It was his duty. She was a passenger. He was a guard. I don't understand. I thought Picasso was a man. He held up his hand in an authoritative stop sign, although he was the one moving. Picasso waited patiently until he had walked the 24 steps that reunited them. She repeated her question. Dramatically, he lowered the phone from his upper lip and pointing to the passenger information. "Yes," said Picasso. "The board tells us 9:15, and it's already 9:20. It is now 9:30. The guard looked at her as a priest looks at a blasphemer. His answer was spiritual and opaque. "When it arrives, you'll know what time it's due." He began again, pacing, muttering, pacing. Picasso went over to the refreshment kiosk, now serving fresh coffee. What had they been serving previously? Her father had said, "A woman who paints is like a man who weeps. Both do it badly." He had a right to call himself a patron of the arts. He had commissioned 55 pictures over the years, all of them self-portraits. "Don't ask me about art," he had said, although Picasso had never tried. "I know about art." Sir Jack had refused to send Picasso to art school. There we are. I leave it there. That's clearly not Pablo Picasso, is it? I think that's quite intriguing. I shall come back to that. It's the first time, even though I've owned that book for several years, I've even opened it. Here's a book I have looked through to an extent. I was given this at work when we have a library. The Art in the Age of Mass Media, and it's by John Walker. In this classic study of contemporary art, John Walker explores the variety of ways in which modern artists have responded to the arrival of new mass media, from the socialist paintings of Courbet to the anti-Nazi photo montages of Hartfield. From community murals, Jeff Koons, I'm just scanning down the page, art in the age of mass media is an invaluable introduction, debates the high art and low culture for students of media and central studies and art history. It says that John A. Walker, he was attached to Middlesex University, and this is, as are others by John, in the published by the Pluto Press. It's Pluto Classic, they call it. There we are. So a quick look through. First thing to ask ourselves is, when was it? It was first published 40 years ago. So there you are. It deals with core terms and concepts. Art uses mass culture. Talking about Andy Warhol. As indeed, who isn't? The mass media uses art, mechanical reproduction, high culture. Yeah, this is Andy Warhol territory, no less. Cultural pluralism, postmodernism, alternatives, art and mass media in the 1980s. You must remember this was written in the 1980s. Artists and new media technologies, war, the media and art in the 1990s. And there was some predictions and some conclusions and bibliography, blah, blah, blah. It is 200 pages. Here are some pictures. Remember the squeezy bottle. My goodness me. I can't help thinking she's not a real person. A survey of all the various mechanical devices visual artists have employed over the centuries would require another volume. And so this chapter will be confined to the few examples in which photography, photocopiers, video, and computers were used. I know David Hockney became very interested in photocopying per se, and also the fax machine. String of Puppies by Jeff Koons. There it is. Two characters holding the puppies. See? And they look starey, almost hypnotized, don't they? Michael Jackson and Bubbles, 1988, another Jeff Koons. Its selling price was reputed to be $250,000. And if you were thinking of buying me a present, and you probably were, don't buy me that. Protect me from what I want. This is by Jenny Holzer. Protect Me from What I Want, 1986. And it's a photograph. I thought it was slightly more than that. The statement is like a prayer for help from all those who are unable to control their desires or resist blandishments, yes, of politicians and advertisers. Yes, I can get that. Yes. In other words, I'm a fool to myself. Protect me from what I want. Here's some more hoardings. Not a concept that is explored that much, I don't know. Just remember, this is rather more serious academic textbook. Big money is moving in. Don't let it push out local people. That's all the notes. Notes. See? During the 1980s, the Docklands area of East London became the largest development and building site in Western Europe. For decades, the zone near the City of London had declined. Then, in 1981, the Conservative government, under Mrs. Thatcher, declared it to be an enterprise zone and suspended normal planning regulations. I will not read any further, but nevertheless, it's still very much with us, isn't it? And this is 40 years later. Keith Haring in his pop shop in Lafayette Street. There we are. I think he's in a drug-crazed state of mind. And for that alone, I would not blame him. Another poster. This time, Vietnam. Americans never quite got over, and possibly still haven't in some respects. The fact they didn't win. John Duga, talking about a banner with 5 colour dye canvas applique hanging in 27 strips. I see, said the blind man. Here we have Hitler, used in a collage, and he's giving his distinctive salute. Somebody's about to thrust either some tickets or some money, some Reichsmarks maybe, into his hot little pud. In an age when culture is dominated by the output of mass media, making art can still be regarded as socially positive activity because artists are still active producers rather than passive consumers of images. I rather like that. Positive activity because artists are active producers rather than passive consumers. This is a cover of a magazine called Desire. The politics of pluralism. Politically speaking, pluralism is liberal philosophy. Dougie Fields with self-portrait, palette, chair, and Jackson Pollock style carpet. And if it's a Jackson Pollock style carpet, he must have thrown paint all over it. In fact, next time somebody says to me, "Why you live in such a mucky place?" I'll say, "It's Jackson Pollock style." Here we are, Mademoiselle d'Avignon from 1907. They won't let this go, will they? Picasso in a brothel. There we are. So if you meet up with any girls like that, if they ask you to pay them, say, "I'm sorry, girls, I'm off." At first glance, the objects looked at as if they were identical, but on closer inspection, it emerges that no two were exactly alike. Sounds like snow, doesn't it? Snowflakes coming down. Automobile manufacturers also vary their basic models in order to offer customers a measure of choice. Yes, I'm sure they do. To generalize, mass replication via modern manufacturing methods undermines the whole value structure of the fine arts. Sounds like William Morris. Contemporary works of art, those from the past which have survived the ravages of time, currently exist alongside billions of images produced and reproduced with the aid of machines. Do you think he means computers? Yes. Here we are, the pears. The little boy blowing bubbles. How famous is that? Or something massively similar. Time Out, a magazine that doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. It may exist online. I used to regularly buy that, even if I wasn't going up to London, and get some fun out of it. There's a Manet, Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe. The breakfast on the grass, I suppose. Is that it? Grass? Head and bottle. Actually, head and bottle. You sure? You sure you do? Okay, here they are. Yeah. 1975, it says. Oil on Canvas. It's the collection of Mr. and Mrs. Philip Lilienthal from San Francisco. And a paragraph here about transubstantiation, which I just know you want to know about. Assessing the pop art movement as a whole, even with the advantage of hindsight, which of course we have, because this is an old book, is problematic because of its heterogeneity, in other words, its mixture, and because critics and historians have differed so widely in their interpretation and evaluations. Yes, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Here's Marilyn Monroe as Chairman Mao. Never seen that before. And there's Marilyn, Ad Nauseum, by Andy Warhol, of course. And there's Mr. Roy Lichtenstein, about whom I know nothing very much other than, but I do know his work a bit, bits and bobs. He took comics, didn't he, and blew them up and made a very, very great deal of money, but not all at once. Considered as a whole, pop exemplifies a mixed response to the mass culture. Some examples appear to celebrate consumer products, yes, they do, and media stars, while others indicate a critical, analytical response. Don't know about that second bit, but never mind. Here we are with Mr. Vincent van Gogh. His work is instantly recognizable on account of the fact that you've seen it before. That's so funny. Gustave Courbet. Good morning, Monsieur Courbet, from 1854. I would have thought he's attempting to do such a broad sweep from 1850 to 1974 or whatever it was published in. He's biting off more than he could chew. I'm sure he knows how to do it. but within the time constraints of a book of 200 pages. A rock concert to benefit Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday. A curious feature of the mass media is that large audiences reached are not gathered together in one place as a single crowd, but dispersed in many locations. A TV program is watched by millions of families and individuals, but their experience is not a collective one. In other words, the mass media atomizes and demobilize their audience. I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic, so I can't sometimes read at sight too well. Apologise. The expression mass media denotes certain modern systems of communication and distribution which mediate between relatively small specialized groups of cultural producers and very large numbers of cultural consumers. Okay. The fine arts. In the ancient world, Middle Ages, we called the visual arts were regarded as useful crafts, on par with shoemaking and cooking. Shoemaking and cooking. Picasso probably nailed in his own shoes. Yeah. Oh, right. Introduction. For many centuries, up until the mid-19th century, architecture, painting, and sculpture were the three principal visual arts of Europe. There we are. And it is published by Pluto Press of London, and it's by John A. Walker, Art in the Age of Mass Media. That is the second book. And the third is in artistic standards, by artistic standards, very, very famous book. This book is published all over the show, mentioned all over the show. It's published by the BBC, this one. Ways of Seeing by John Berger. Seeing comes across before words, the child looks and recognizes before it can speak. Yes, you do see that, don't you? But there is also another sense in which seeing comes before words. Well, certainly the child would have recognition before it spoke, I would assume. It is seeing which establishes our place in the surrounding world. We examine that the world with words, but words can never undo the fact that we're surrounded by it. The relation between what we see and what we know is never settled. Okay. There's Maigret, the surrealist painter. I bought this book for 75 pence. I did rather well. Based on the BBC television series with John Berger. I apologise, I don't know how to pronounce the surname. Berger, maybe. This book was published 50 years ago. Seeing comes before words. The child looks and recognizes before it can speak. I've gone rather quiet because I suppose I'm absorbed in this. Some advertising, sort of thing you might get in colour supplements. There you are. Quite know why I want to show that, but still, I suppose it has artistic merit, doesn't it? And so she comes to consider the surveyor and the surveyed within her as the two constituent yet always distinct elements of her identity as a woman. She has to survey everything she is and everything she does, because how she appears to others and ultimately how she appears to men is of crucial importance for her for what is normally thought as a success of her life. In that direction lies self-consciousness, doesn't it? Her own sense of being herself is supplanted by a sense of being appreciated as herself by another. In other words, no man is an island. I rather like that as well. Men survey women before treating them. Consequently, how a woman appears to a man can determine how she will be treated. To acquire some control over his process, women must contain it and interiorize it. Interiorize it. In other words, take it within themselves. Every woman's presence regulates what is and what is not permissible within her presence. Well, he is hoping in that direction lies self-respect. In other words, it's not just what you see, but how you feel and how the two are connected, which is a concept this book examines, not exclusively, and probably why it's so famous. The typical and exceptional in the traditional can be defined by the simple naked nude anatomy, but the problem of painting nakedness is not as simple as it might at first appear. And here she is in the nud, going, get me my clothes. No, I don't know if she's saying that. Anyway, iconography, some church paintings, lots actually. Lots of paintings without attribution. Levi Strauss writes, it is the avid and ambitious desire to take possession of the object for the benefit of the owner or even the spectator, which seems to me to constitute one of the outstanding original features of the art of Western civilization. I don't agree with a word of that. It is the avid and ambitious desire to take possession of the object for the benefit of the owner or even of the spectator, which seems to me to constitute one of the outstanding original features of the art of Western civilization. Here we are, The Ambassador by Ans Ulbein. It's better in colour, isn't it? Greens, and blues and browns. Visitors to art museums are often overwhelmed by the number of works on display and by what they take to be the culpable inability to concentrate on more than a few of these works. In fact, such reaction is altogether reasonable. Oh, thank you, Mr. Berger. I feel much the better for that. And here's the ambassadors again, just in case you've forgotten what they look like. Let us now return to the two ambassadors, to their presence as men. This will mean reading the painting differently, not at the level of what it shows within its frame, but at the level of what it refers to outside it. The two men are confident and formal. What was the relations of such men to the rest of the world? The globe on the bottom shelf is a new one which charts the recent voyage of Magdalene. Holbein has added the globe. I'm sure he's added a very great deal more than just the globe. And bits of that analysis, I'm sure, can be found in many places. Picture by my friend Turner, I think. Perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps it's not Turner. It's one of his Dutch counterparts. Never mind, I'm sure it's worth seeing. Something about Gainsborough. Mr. and Mrs. Andrews out hunting, fishing. And in the background there is an industrial town springing up. More pictures without attribution. More adverts. See? There we are. And a bit of text, but the text is not overwhelmingly complex. The oil painting showed what its owner was already enjoying amongst his possessions and his way of life. It consolidates his own sense of its own value. It enhances his view of himself as he already was. It begins with facts, the facts of life. The paintings embellish the interior in which he actually lived. What's mine's me own, in other words. There we are. That's the interior in which he actually lived. He must have had a few quid put by. Some travel posters, which we encountered earlier. Capitalism survives by forcing the majority, whom it exploits, to define their own interests as narrowly as possible. This was once achieved by extensive deprivation. Today, in the developing countries, it's being achieved by imposing a false standard of what is and what is not desirable. And he puts attributions for the pictures. And he lists the bibliography, and then there's some advertising. Some other books by John Berger in collaboration. There we are. A book I recommend, of course. Ways of Seeing by John Berger. This has been Book Club number 3, Art Books. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.